difficult of an aspect of the total endeavor was going halfway around the world with nobody knowing you were there.
What worried me more than anything was leaks, security leaks.
If we have a rescue mission, people will die.
This year, for the first time ever, the White House tree stays dark until the hostages are back from Iran.
When Vietnam fell, the country didn't want to hear anything about prosecuting missions around the world.
We refuse to permit the use of terrorism and the seizure and the holding of hostages to impose political demands.
Study these faces. You only shoot the bad guys.
When somebody captures our citizens, I'm one of those guys that says, mount up and go get them.
Stop the bus! Stop the bus!
We gotta move. C-130's running out of fuel. All right, hang on.
We decided to move the helicopters from that behind him. This one particular helicopter, when it lifted up, it tipped forward, hit the left side of the aircraft.
And then the world lit up. I mean, we had flames 400 feet in the sky.
Men were dying and the ammunition was exploding.
Here was a C-130, obviously on fire, flames 400 feet in the air, munitions shooting off in every direction, and people silhouetted as they ran from the C-130.
Good evening. The American embassy in Tehran is in the hands of Muslim students tonight. Spurred on by an anti-American speech by the Ayatollah Khomeini, they stormed the embassy, fought the Marine Guards for 3 hours, overpowered them, and took dozens of American hostages.
In January of 1979, the Shah of Iran, a dictator and ally of America, is overthrown. By February 1st, Islamic fundamentalists, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, take control of the country. Months later, on November 4th, 1979, dissidents storm the U.S. Embassy and overcome the Marine Guards. 66 Americans are taken hostage to protest U.S. support of the Shah's regime. President Jimmy Carter is politically compromised by the kidnappings. But he also knows the U.S. military is worn thin from years of war in Vietnam. In 1979, Major James Schaefer is a Marine Corps helicopter pilot.
At the time the hostages were taken, we just gotten out of Vietnam. We're fighting for operational and maintenance money to rebuild the forces that were coming out of Vietnam. We were still working on old equipment, not aging equipment, but older equipment.
An armed rescue operation is the best military option, and the Army's Delta Force is the only unit capable of pulling it off. While Delta has trained for hostage rescue operations, Major General James Vaught knows the unit is untested in the field.
Delta was reasonably capable at that time, but had not actually conducted any extensive operations that would have been notable.
Only Jimmy Carter can unleash Delta Force on Iran. But two members of his cabinet are deeply divided on strategy. The president's national security advisor demands military action. Carter's Secretary of State insists on quiet diplomacy.
Khomeini is taunting us. His revolution isn't solving Iran's economic problems, so he's exploiting the hostage crisis to unite his people against us. And we mustn't do anything crass or foolish that plays into his hands.
Getting the hostages home safely is the most important thing.
The president was very concerned about the status of the hostages. He was concerned about the people that were holding them. He, in effect, in my belief is, didn't want anybody to die because of the ill-advised actions of others.
We have to be ready to explore all our options, including the military option.
We've embargoed Iranian oil. We're finding ways to negotiate with Iran through the Algerians, the UN, and the PLO. There's no need to get the military involved here.
While Vance goes on the diplomatic offensive, Delta Force continues to train. In 1979, John Carney serves in the Air Force Special Tactics Unit.
You know, the cognitive and the physical skills were all there. I mean, these were some pretty well intensely trained individuals. All of them, a vast majority of them, are combat veterans.
Delta's base is hidden in a secluded corner of Fort Bragg in North Carolina. The unit's existence is top secret. The force is the brainchild of Colonel Charlie Beckwith.
Charlie Beckwith has a nickname called Chargin' Charlie, and he has that. There's a reason for that. He's a very courageous man, fought in Vietnam, seriously wounded in Vietnam. And I mean, he can love you one minute and hate you the next.
He was highly respected by the men in Delta, and he had a lot of difficulty finding the kinds of people that he needed, and then getting those people into his formation and conditioning them to do the things that he anticipated they would be asked to do.
After 13 days of negotiations, Cyrus Vance gains the release of 13 hostages, but 53 Americans remain in captivity.
I never forget one moment that I'm awake about the hostages whose lives and whose safety depend on me. And I am pursuing every possible avenue to have the hostages released.
No one is more furious with Iran than America's military. In 1979, J.J. Byers is an Air Force radio operator.
They were stomping on America. They had our people, and we can't let foreign countries take our people and get away with it. So this is what basically fueled us and got us ready to go.
As days turn to weeks, the White House orders the Pentagon to consider military options. Working under General Vought, Charlie Beckwith and Delta Force will execute the hostage extraction. The operation is codenamed Eagle Claw.
3 carbines. Blue Element will do the same to buildings.
Delta Force will blow a hole in the embassy wall. The commandos will fan out into the 27-acre compound, overcome the guards, and search for the hostages in 6 separate buildings.
How many casualties do you see here?
6 or 7 Delta and maybe 2 or 3 hostages.
As planners get to work on the rescue, the challenges of time, space, and secrecy are overwhelming. It soon becomes clear that Operation Eagle Claw could easily become a suicide mission.